Welcome back to the Celtics Chronicle. As usual, I'm your boy, Adam Taylor. And as usual, I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Webbs. Webbs, what's popping, man?
What's good, mate? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You went with the English answer. What's good, man?
I don't know. I don't know if I should go with mate or bruv would work best. I'm not sure. I was working on it.
Both work, man, or dude. I mean, I'm
Dude.
still figuring out if I'm going with Webbs or Weather or Bob. So you
We'll figure this out. We'll figure it out.
figure it out. What we're doing today, anyway, is we're going to be looking at, with the playoffs coming right around the corner, we're going to be looking at the different threats to the Celtics in the postseason, and we're going to be ranking them in tiers. Tier one threat is a team that you genuinely believe could go 7 games and it might not go Boston's way, or it's going to be a really hard fought series. A tier two threat is, oh, this could go 5, 6. You know, if something goes wrong or if they have a couple of runs in a few games, maybe the Celtics find them sweating in a game 7. And a tier three threat is, yo, this is a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. Just kind of going to rank them. What we've already done is the teams that are out of the playoffs we put at the bottom of the ranking, just so you can see that, you know, they're no threat because they're not there. And I understand the playoffs are still a few games away, but this is around about the time where we need to start ramping up for playoff talk. Let's get straight to it. So right now, as you can see, the Celtics are at the top because they're Celtics and we're looking at who are there for it. We see who's out of the playoffs, which leaves the Atlanta Hawks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Charlotte Hornets, Detroit Pistons, Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors, New York Knicks, Philly, and did I say Magic already? If I didn't, then the Magic.
Yeah, we got Magic. Yeah.
So what I want to do is, first and foremost, I want to ask you, which is the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics this season in the postseason? Eastern Conference. We're only doing Eastern Conference.
I got a 2-pronged approach to this thought. One is we got to exercise the demons of New York, right? As great as this year has been for us, right, man? It's been a house money, right? House money, right? I'm not moving the goalposts like a lot of people are. Well, if they don't make it to this, I'm enjoying this season. This has been a very enjoyable year. But a lot of our last thoughts are of Tatum being sprawled out on that, on the floor at MSG. So to me, and then this year, our games, we have not matched up well with that team. It's been a tough go with them during the regular season. So it's got to be the Knicks. I don't love Mike Brown as a coach. I think Tibbs is a better coach. It's felt like they were on the cusp of mutiny all year. Like there's been all kinds of like weird stuff going on in that locker room. But you got to give them respect, man. You got to slay the dragon before you talk shit,
I feel with the Knicks, I've been the most concerned about them all season, mainly because I feel like they were built to contend against Boston. Look, They went and got the wing stoppers in Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. They went and got a 5-out big man in Karl Anthony Towns that was specifically, in my opinion, to counter that Kristaps Porzingis threat last season.
Yep.
They've got their top-level scorer in Jalen Brunson that can put up as many points as Jaylen Brown, just doesn't give you the defense. They've got some good depth. Now, one of the biggest knocks on the Knicks this season is the fact that they've struggled against teams with winning records. So they went on a 7-game win streak during March. All 7 of those wins came against teams with 500 or below, 0.500 or below records. They were 1-4 against teams with winning records during March. They've just really struggled against teams that know how to play and that play as a unit. And that kind of doesn't bode well for them heading into playoffs, right? Like they won on Wednesday night when they played Memphis, but the night before that, they got spanked by Houston. It seems to be that, like you said, they've been on the border of a mutiny. Mike Brown came in and completely revamped, rebuilt the way the offense runs. And it's kind of been, he's implementing an offense with a team that was built to play Tibbs basketball. So it's been a little bit start for them. I do still think that talent-wise, they are the biggest threat to the Celtics, mainly because it's like OG Anunoby has been quietly putting together a career year. Mikal Bridges can be a massive wing stopper in anything.
He's a pain in the ass. Let's keep calling what it is. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Josh Hart is like a Marcus Smart level, like emotional leader for that team. It's just ridiculous. Like they are
the guy you hate to play, but you wish was on your team.
Exactly. When they play well, they're borderline unstoppable. I just don't know whether they're capable of beating the Celtics in a 7-game series because of the issues they've had implementing Mike Brown's system. that's been my biggest kind of takeaway from them. Now, depth-wise, I think they've got a solid bench. I think Mitchell Robinson's going to cause the Celtics a ton of problems.
He's such a pain too. Yeah.
I think that's where, yesterday we spoke about the importance of Vooch and whether Luka Garza would beat Vucevic. I actually think Vucevic's value would come into play against the Knicks because of the value that Mitch Robinson brings on the offensive glass. You need to kind of counter that with a Nikola Vucevic. If you go a bit further down their rotation, like you've got Deuce McBride that can come off the bench and give them a similar, not as high level, but a similar impact to them as what Pritchard does for Boston.
Yeah.
So I am kind of looking at the Knicks like this is a team I'd expect to come in like facing the Eastern Conference Finals or deep into the postseason, depending on where they finish. Right, they're 2.5 games behind the Celtics right now, but Cleveland are right on their ass. 1 game behind the second seed, one game behind the third seed. They could overtake, and then New York could finish in the 4th seed. It changes the trajectory of how this stuff's going to play out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Knicks just in terms of like you have to factor in, you've got to play them at MSG multiple times, by the way, if it's a deep series.
It is what it is, man. It's like if you play hoop, no matter how much somebody talks shit, you look at the scoreboard and say, hey, we're winning. And I think they've held that over us, and we definitely got to go in MSG and win a game. It's tough not to think about being up by 20 points in the first 2 games and just blowing those leads, which was definitely an issue with that team last year in general. We got up big a lot and had a hard time. I was actually having flashbacks of that last night going into the 4th quarter. But I do think you got to respect Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby. They're 3 excellent Celtic guys you'd want on our team as defenders. I think Missoula would love to have guys like that. And honestly, Mikal Bridges gives Jaylen Brown a lot of problems. He doesn't stop him, but you could tell he annoys the crap out of him. And then OG, to your point, has always been like, it always felt like one injury away from being great. Like he's had some really good runs, but he's had a hard time putting seasons together. But he's just an amazing player too. And Josh Hart is, like I said, I'll say it again. Josh is the guy that if I could pick one player off that roster to put on the Celtics, it would be Josh Hart for sure. And this goes back to the Nova days when he was on that team. He's just always he's a culture guy. He's a winner. He makes winning plays. So that is the Mitch Robinson thing. It's kind of cool that you brought up Vooch, because I did think about that. That was the first team I thought of when we acquired Vooch in that trade. Was okay. All right, Brad understands that there's no way we can go into a series against the Knicks this small. And at the time, I wasn't sure what was going on with Tatum, if that even would look like too. But I feel confident that it's going to be. I think it'll be the best series of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference if we get to play the Knicks. That's how I feel about it.
I think the other thing, and I was just kind of looking for the clip because I'm sure I pulled it last season, but I'm just struggling to find it right now because I would have put it up on the screen. One area that I'd be really interested in is whenever the Celtics play the Knicks, the narrative is just hunt Brunson, force a switch to get Brunson onto you, isolate him and attack, right? And coming into last season's the postseason, that series, if you remember, the Celtics absolutely manhandled the Knicks all the way through the regular season. All the way through.
Yeah.
And they've been hunting Brunson, and Thibodeau had kind of been playing possum because he was allowing it to happen. Once the postseason began, it felt like the Knicks figured out a way to keep Brunson within an action, but hide him from being hunted. And what was happening was, on a switch, Brunson would jump out and hedge, and then recover back to his original man, which kind of took away the value of hunting that switch in the first place and forced the Celtics to kind of have to go into secondary actions, tertiary actions. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because that's still your best bet for consistently creating good offense on the perimeter against the Knicks is to hunt Brunson. And I think that the best course of action this year is if the Knicks kind of revert back to putting Brunson in a show and recover, a hedge and recover position on defense, maybe it's time to start attacking Towns instead, because Towns is just as much of a defensive liability, but he just doesn't have the same foot speed, the hip dexterity to be able to show and recover quickly enough that you're not going to attack the gap that he leaves on the recover. So I do think that the Knicks have weaknesses to attack, but it's just not going to be easy.
I'm interested in seeing I'm just interested in seeing Tatum in that moment. I'm dying for that game. That first game at MSG in the playoffs is going to be just, the vibes, man. I'm just telling you, that's going to be a great, great experience for everyone.
For the Knicks? Oh, go on. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I had said 2 teams. The other team I for some reason have a phobia of is the Hornets.
You put
I,
him as a tier 1 threat, though.
I don't know. I don't know. No, I logic tells me that doesn't make sense, but my eyes as a basketball guy and somebody who loves the game really likes the way they play. It almost
Okay.
feels like they remind me of us before, like somewhere in between when Gordon and Kyrie were gone and we've started to really get it together. They're scrappy, they're tough, and also they kind of remind me of OKC light. There's a lot of fouling. Pretty much, they could call it fouling every play. You know, it's they get the is it I don't know if it's Sion James from Duke that's on Charlotte. He reminds me of Lou Dort. You know, you've got a lot of this, like these elements of, wow, this is going to be a team we're going to be dealing with. And I don't think they're ready. I say it again, like, it's like us versus the Warriors in 2022. You have to like go through it as a young squad and figure this out. But as far as like the other team, I would say that are going to give us a hard time. I would say it's probably a tier 2 threat. And I know that sounds disrespectful to the Pistons, but I, I, I don't know. I feel like we've had great games with the Pistons all year. They've been excellent. It's going to be a good series too. So I guess you could call it tier 1 threat because I feel like I don't want to be disrespectful to Cade because I do think Cade deserves MVP conversation. I don't know if he qualifies with games, obviously. I know this is a 65-game rule, but I do think that Pistons team and the Celtics have had great games every game this year, and we didn't have Tatum in any of them. So like, it's logic tells you like, okay, like we handled these guys without Jason, and we get Tatum back. It's like, are we gonna mop the floor with them? But I do think you got to give them their respect. I think they're well coached. They're physical. Duran scares me. Jalen Duran scares me. Thompson. I mean, both Thompson kids, both twins. They man, they give Peyton Pritchard a hard time. They're great at on ball. You know, they force the action. They make him play off ball more. I just think I guess we have to give the Pistons their respect. I guess assuming Cade comes back.
Assuming he comes back, he's not going to be 100%. We'll get back to Charlotte in a moment as well because I've got some thoughts there. Are we having him as a tier 2 threat or a tier 1 threat?
Tier 2 because of experience, the losses they had last year in the playoffs, and I just think we're a better team. But I think they're like somewhere back to, not to get back and forth here, but they're somewhere evolutionary a little bit further ahead of the Hornets developmentally as far as experience because they took their punches last year in the series with the Knicks. That was a great series last year.
So what I'm going to say is I'm going to break this down into 2. So for Charlotte, my biggest issue with Charlotte right now in terms of them being a threat is Charles Lee. I think Charles Lee is their secret weapon again.
Yes.
Assistant coach under Joe, who's a lead assistant under Joe Mazzulla for a season, understands the way the Celtics play, has a very good working knowledge of the team and their offensive and defensive schemes. Obviously, they've tweaked a little bit since Charles Lee was there.
Right.
But and then you factor in Grant Williams that understands, he understands Tatum's tendencies, Brown's tendencies. He's been on that team as well. Played under Mazzulla for a while before he got shipped out. It was one season, if I remember correctly. I don't think Grant and Joe got on very well. Or if they did, it just didn't seem that way. Anyway, getting on, I'm not going to say there was an issue where I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
That's just being a douche, and that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to say is that the Hornets have a good understanding of the way the Celtics play on a deep level. I also think that Brandon Miller can get hot in any minute, any different moment. Is it Knipple? Ron Knipple has been incredible.
Knipple, yeah.
I think this year for Charlotte, anything past the first round is like house money, and it's all about developing the experience, developing their guys. And the reason I'm happy with putting them in a tier 2 threat is because I also feel like if they get hot and they get rolling, they're going to be a team that shocks people. And it's going to be a team where you're coming into a series and you think it's going to be a 4-5, maybe even a 6-game series. And now you're in the fourth quarter, down 5 or up 5 with 3 minutes to go in a game 7, not knowing who's going to win because they're just that type of like, do you ever hear like you're so young, you don't realize you're meant to lose?
Yeah, exactly. Like ignorance, man. It's a weapon. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. With Detroit, I think, like you said, they took some lumps last year. They developed, they got better. They have a very clearly defined identity and system now. I would have had them as a tier 1 threat if Cade hadn't gone down. When Cade comes back, we don't know how healthy he's going to be. Obviously, his long-term health is more important than just one postseason run. So he might be on a ministry streak. We don't know how that's going to look. Without Cade, I do not see them being a postseason threat.
He's the machine. He's the machine. Yeah, for sure.
And just like Taylor, right? Just like you get Cade back and it's 50-60%, you're better than most teams in the East, which is why I'm going to put you in a tier 2.
Right.
So I'm comfortable there. One team I would like to put as tier 1, and I'm wondering if you're going to disagree, kind of clear cut for me, is Cleveland.
Okay.
I think that Cleveland as a tier 1 threat, Evan Mobley, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, you're going to get up points in bunches. I feel like Kenny Atkinson has had a bit of a hard go this year, right? You lose one of your most impactful guys who were off the bench last season, and you replace him with Lonzo Ball. And then Lonzo Ball doesn't pan out and you have to move on. Darius Garland gets hurt during last year's playoffs and then misses some of the time to start this season. Starts to get his feet back under him, but there's been questions about his long-term fit against Donovan Mitchell for a minute. The opportunity comes to get James Harden, who I think is just an upgrade all the way around. I do think Cleveland have enough in them to be like a genuine postseason pain.
Okay.
You know, Dean Wade's a Celtics pain in the ass every time the Celtics play.
He's the new Ish Smith, Adam. He's the new Ish Smith.
I'm telling you, it's so frustrating. I think Harden and Mitchell work together, just put points in bunches, and then look, man, I remember reading a Donovan Mitchell interview during the summer where he was like, yo, Evan Mobley has all the skills to be an MVP candidate. He's just got to become more aggressive with it, right? It's all about aggression and knowing that you're one of the best players on the floor. Sometimes it takes a playoff series for that to click for you. And I just think if Evan Mobley realizes how good he actually is, and Kenny Atkinson has a system in place, maybe they become a threat to the Celtics. I still think the Celtics win the series. I'm not saying just because you're in a tier 1 threat that I think that you're going to beat Boston. But I do think you're talking a 6 or a 7 game series to get past them. That's why I have Cleveland. I don't know whether you agree with this.
So I'm all right. So I'm on the fence with that one, only because once again, it's like the opposite. Like the numbers show you that the roster is super deep. Donovan Mitchell, his numbers against the Celtics, he literally is Michael Jordan against the Celtics. You look at his numbers. I want to say that there are only 2 players in the history of the NBA who've averaged 30 points a game against the Celtics. One is Jordan and the other is Mitchell, ever as a player. And he's excellent. He's Spider-Man. He's a killer, right? And I agree with you with Mobley, and I think that is where I'm on the fence. Is I feel like Mobley's passive and doesn't always realize that he is like the best player on the court. Defensively, he's elite already. Oh, he came into the league elite. But for some reason, I just feel like we match up really well with that team. I think while Garland's gone, right? Because we were doing Garland, what you were talking about with Brunson. We used to just find him and pick and roll him to death and ISO him and abuse him in the paint. You know, but I think, and it's tough to deal with Harden. He's not the athlete he used to be, but he's still one of the best passers of all time. And but then again, not to be a Harden hater, because I'm not. I give James his respect. Let's remember, James is yet to win anything in the playoffs.
This is
how many times at Houston did he go to a game 7 and just shit his pants? I don't know no way to put it. Like I always think of that Warriors series where they had the Warriors right on the fence, and CP3 had gotten hurt. There was a bunch of stuff going on, and he showed up. I want to say he was like 0 for 11 from 3 in a big game. It was over by like the 3rd quarter. And so like I just don't think, and I remember Harden was going to be the guy in Philly. Harden was going to be the guy in Brooklyn. Harden was going to be the guy in LA. I think he did a great job of raising the water, for lack of a better term, rising tide, right, over in metaphor, like great analogy because it's the Clippers. He did a great job of holding things down while Kawhi was getting healthy. But I don't know that team has the DNA to get over the hump and be a championship team. I think Kenny Atkinson's super underrated. I like a lot of their role players. But I don't know. For me, I know maybe I'm crazy here, but I think the Hornets are a tougher matchup than the Cavaliers.
That's a bold take. But I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying
just for the Celtics.
Yeah, just for the Celtics. I understand what you're saying. Just in the way the matchup to watch Boston.
Just in the styles makes fights thing. That's what I'm saying.
So the next one I throw out there for you, and I'm going to let you rank these guys, is going to be very divisive. And I think the comment section, this is where if people are going to have a problem and they're going to jump in the comments, this is where it's going to be.
Bring it on.
Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, the Sixers.
Man, you know, like they've been playing so well. Maxey is elite and underrated. It seems like Embiid, I can't say that I've watched a ton of Sixers games recently, mostly because I was probably tired of turning on the TV to find out he was not playing for some reason. It's a tough watch, especially when they had Harden. It was a tough watch between him and Embiid. I don't know who spent more time on the floor, but for me, I think the Sixers are Tier 3. We own real estate in Embiid's head. We have forever. They've yet to do anything against the Celtics. And this is by far the worst team they've had talent-wise in all the years that we've beat them in the playoffs. So it's hard for me to even see them as anything other than a gentleman's sweep if we play them. And that could be controversial. Maybe Embiid, has a comeback moment and I'm missing something. I know Edgecombe is definitely the future, right? But for me, Paul George, Embiid, it's just a matter of time before somebody sneezes and pulls a muscle and is out for a couple games.
What I will say is facing Philly in a first round matchup is not new to this Celtics.
Exactly.
It's par for the course at this point. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is if Paul George is healthy, which he looks to be right now, and Embiid is around 70 to 80% of himself, and then you factor in Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, I'm not expecting that to be an easy series. Definitely not. They stay healthy, and this is where I'm getting at. Like, if they stay healthy, like the Sixers, and Edgecomb's like the Celtics typically struggle with explosive guards that can penetrate off the bounce, right? It's been a long-standing issue. It's one of Derek White's only weak points is if you can blow by him off the bounce. He's going to get you in the rear view, and he's going to pressure you, and you're going to have guys rotating over and whatnot. But between him and Maxey, I think that's a guard tandem that could give Boston's perimeter defense some problems. And then you factor in Embiid, and then you factor in Paul George as a two-way guy that can be a bit of a wing stopper for them. I'm not expecting them to be a threat. I don't think they beat the Celtics, but I don't know whether that's a 5 to 7 game series, like a tier 2 threat. Like, do you really think they'd get swept or gentlemen swept?
Say gentlemen sweep. I have visions of Jason Tatum crossing up a better version of Paul George and making him fall to the floor when he was on the Clippers.
This is true.
I've got visions of Embiid just being completely useless and gassed before the fourth quarter. And I agree. I think if there is an Achilles heel on our team, it's that. Although I do think Hugo and Walsh and Shyman have taken steps to support White in that endeavor of battling explosive guards. There's no doubt Edgecombe has left an impression on Celtic fans. I mean, that opening game against them, I think he scored 37 points or something crazy like that. The kid's got it in him. He's a special player. I think he's clearly the future of that team. And Maxey's Maxey. I think I don't know how he could be underrated, but for a guy who puts up the numbers he puts up on a team that's had so much uncertainty with injuries, he consistently plays well. The numbers have been there. I don't think maybe he even gets the flowers he deserves. He's definitely, he's maddening to watch because to your point, we're used to D. White being one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. And then you put him on Maxey and you feel like D. White looks slow. And we know he's not. So I don't know. I could be, my arm could be twisted in a best case scenario that they're healthy, that they're tier 2. But I would not be I wouldn't be nervous at all if we face him in the first round. So I say
I feel more comfortable putting them tier 2 because I'm not nervous, but I also don't expect it to be a sweep.
It won't be a sweep.
Now, I'm happy to keep him at tier 3. At the moment, I want to keep him at tier 2. And we're kind of filling up that second tier. So let's go on to a team where I feel like the Celtics are just better than.
Yeah.
The Miami Heat.
Ah.
Version of the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
I've got them as we saw they played like Miami played well. They pulled it back a little bit last night before the Celtics pulled away.
Yeah.
They were making their shots. Boston was making their shots. The issue, and I want to go back to coaching here, I don't think the Heat match up well with the Celtics at all. I don't think they've got much in terms of matchup continuity. I think if you was to go head to head with every player, the only like at every position, assuming Bam's at the 5, Bam's probably the only Miami Heat player that wins that head to head.
Right.
What I will say is Spo is still the best coach in the NBA. That matters in the postseason more than it does in the regular season, because the postseason is where adjustments can make or break runs, make or break games, make or break postseason runs.
Yeah, we learned that twice with him.
Yeah,
in the bubble, and then that other 7-game series.
2023. Yeah, 2023. What I will say is, I'm personally putting Miami as a tier 3 threat. I think while Spo's there, he just doesn't have the talent for the Heat to be the genuine like concern for me coming in. I'm like 5 games, get them in, get them out, it's done. The bigger threat to Boston right now, playing in Miami and the nightlife and the draw of the nightlife is a bigger threat to Boston than actually whatever they can do on the floor.
Agreed,
it's
man.
actually being in Miami that's the problem. So because of that, I've got them as a tier 3 threat. Sorry, Pat.
Yeah, I do like I do think it's really cool to see them after all these years of being like the theory being like the refs can't call every foul. You know, that's what it felt like playing them when they had Jimmy and Bam. I feel like it's so interesting to watch them run in the LaRoche system, right? Like they're running 5 out. It's like it's kind of fascinating. It only makes me further respect Spo because he's really. I mean, last night they were throwing zones. I mean, he really is. He really will try anything to give his team a chance, and that is worth something. But man, I think gentlemen sweep at minimum with that team for sure. Matchup nightmare for them.
I'm just looking. I remember seeing a stat earlier this year where it was like I don't think I can do it by team on the NBA. Oh, I can. Pick and roll. If I remember correctly, they run less pick and roll than any team in the league. No team in the league, like they only run 2.5 pick and roll possessions a game. Now that doesn't mean they're not running drag screens, they're not running flare screens.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of movement.
Yeah. It's just standard half court pick and roll. Let me set a screen, you come off the screen, drag your dribble while I roll. No one's doing it less than Miami right now. They've really leaned into the fact that they've got some explosive wings. They've got some young guys that can push the pace, and they've got Bam Adebayo, who's an operator as a trail man that can create, finish, or do what he needs to do in the paint. So look, they play to their strengths, and as you said, credit to Spo for the adjustments he made coming into this year to maximize the talent he does have. But I think playing fast against the Celtics, as we saw on Wednesday, opens you up to get absolutely torched.
Bring it on, man. It was like F1. It was like F1 last night.
They're just too good. If you want to play at that tempo against them, they're going to match it and they're going to absolutely kill you because of the amount of slashing talent, the amount of put-up shooting talent, and the movement shooters that they have on the team.
And the rebounding. And the rebounding. Our offensive rebounding was like an Achilles for us for a long time. It's come such a long way this year. It's really awesome. Yeah.
So the 3 teams left. I want to get through this to let everybody continue with their day or their evening if they're not when they're watching this. So what kind of shoot through this a bit? The Orlando Magic. Did you have
not the same team that gave us problems the last couple of years.
You would have thought with Desmond Bain and what he was meant to be bringing to the team and how he was going to elevate the floor space, give Paolo more room to do what Paolo does. You would have thought that they would be further along, but they seem to have regressed a little bit.
Yeah, they were my preseason dark horse to maybe represent the Eastern Conference, thinking that Tyrese Halliburton and Tatum were going to be out all year. I thought, like, man, they gave us fits. They got Desmond Bain. They seem to really respond well to their coach, but I don't know if that's the case this year. It feels like it's kind of like the Knicks with worse talent. It doesn't feel like there's consistent buy-in, and obviously we're not in the locker room. We can't say that, but there's been a lack of consistency. And Paolo, for me, I thought for sure this was going to be like that All-NBA Team 1 conversation this year for him, and that has not been the case. And to your point earlier, like the whole issue was, they don't have enough shooting, and they get Bane, and they're still not scoring at a high clip. They're kind of, it's muddy, gross basketball. I don't know that I want to face them, but I think the Celtics beat them they're tier 3. Celtics beat them in 5 at worst, because they go to Disney or something. They go to Disney or something, and they go
Look,
golfing, and
I think Orlando can be physical skill. I think they can be a tough team to beat, but
yeah,
their efficiency is a big problem. And I know that's been an issue that people knock on Paolo for, and I get that eye test versus like stat test. Paolo kind of is like this really weird anomaly where eye test is phenomenal, and then you look at the numbers and he's super inefficient. And I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I think if you lean too far into numbers, you miss a lot of nuance. But if you lean too far into just your eye test, you miss the lessons that the numbers can give you. So I like to try and sit somewhere in the middle. I think Paolo's a really interesting cat in terms of that. I still think he's going to develop into an all-NBA guy, but he needs to become smart with his shot selection. He needs to understand where his spots are on the floor, and he needs more spacing around him. If you look, one of the biggest things for Detroit was ahead of last season. So not this past off season, but the off season before. One of the biggest things that changed Detroit's trajectory was they started surrounding Cade with shooters. And once they started surrounding Cade with shooters, and Cade had the room to do what Cade needed to do, their record started to change drastically. Yeah, allowed Cade to flourish. Once Cade flourished, now we're talking about Cade as a potential MVP candidate.
Yeah.
I think the same's true in Orlando, but what Orlando are trying to do is, rather than just put any shooter there, they went and got an elite shooter that create off the bench, score on 3 levels in Desmond Bane. Maybe this summer they go and get another one. And once you start piecing multiple floor spaces around Paolo, and you figure out how him and Franz can work together long term, I think they're going to be fine. It's growing pains. Progression is never linear, right? You go forward, you go back, you go up, you go down. But this is
we've seen it here right in Boston. We've seen it right here in Boston.
Exactly. So for me, this not Miami. This is progression for Orlando. It's not progression we expected. Progression is happening. It's just not showing right now. So I think
what's an interesting parallel though is all those years of hearing about Brown and Tatum being able to coexist. Makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if it's Franz and Paolo, because it feels to me like when you watch them play, they're more efficient when Franz is playing point forward. And he's a pain in the butt. He really is. He's tough, but it feels like they haven't been able to figure that out. I think that's the key to unlocking the team, is them being able to play together. And it's kind of sucks because the Magic kind of did what the Knicks did with getting Bridges, except it didn't work, or it hasn't worked, I should say, with Bane.
That's fair. I think that's really fair. I think that Bane, sometimes it takes more than a year. But your second season is when you really see a guy gel and bed in.
Yeah.
So I'm still confident in Bane's ability to be impactful over in Orlando. I just don't think it just hasn't been yet, and that's the way it is. Moving on, I want to ask you about Atlanta. Where do you see Atlanta? Tier 2, tier 3? They're not a tier 1 threat, so I'm not even throwing that out there.
So to me, I see elements of Hornets-esque problems, meaning they get rid of Trey, right? And suddenly the defense on that team is like, I thought, oh man, they got rid of Porzingis, they got rid of Trey. Like, what's this even going to look like? But man, Jalen Johnson is a real one. Dyson is the same thing we just talked about with Hart. And I think Okongwu is going to be the new Nikola Vucevic. You and I are going to be talking about him in 5 years, about how we finally got him at 35 when he was always up for trade rumors and Celtics was somehow going to land Okongwu. He's underrated too. When he hits shots, they become really difficult to play. But
see, I've got a feeling with Okongwu, sorry to cut in here, I've got a feeling with Okongwu that he could either go that way, where he's like the Vooch guy, you get 35, or we could be looking at him as like another John Collins that kind of peaked youngish, and then was a bit of a tweener, didn't really find his game. And look, you ask a Celtics fan now, do you want John Collins? Most of them are going to say no. Right? I actually think John Collins could fit well off the bench for the version of the Celtics they have right now. But just in terms of like a grander scheme of a discussion, Okongwu has been great. And Okongwu is somebody that I discussed during the trade deadline as like an ideal trade target for Boston before they landed Vooch. So I'm with you there, but I do think that like this is probably the first season I felt like his name getting talked about a bunch. I was a big fan. You could go back to when I was writing for Celtics blog and look at that year's draft. And when I was writing about the upcoming draft and stuff, like Hungary was the guy I was really pushing for. I had it all over Twitter. It was just I felt like he was a perfect fit back then for Boston. And now you're kind of seeing why, because of that positional versatility on defense, his ability to switch on multiple guys, his ability to be a defensive stopper, plus he can create a little bit out of like the post and stuff for others. So I do really like a Kangaroo. I'm just not, and I agree with the trade stuff you were talking about. It's very much an addition by subtraction, but I still don't think that team is ready to push Boston beyond 5 yet.
Yeah, they're like the Pistons a couple of years ago, like you were saying. They're right on the cusp of kind of figuring it out. And I do think they're real close to being a real problem, though. They're long, they're athletic, and well, Quinn Snyder's an amazing coach. He's to me a top tier coach in the NBA.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm not arguing with that at all. I think Snyder's great. It's just taking a while to be able to get rid of Trey. That was the big. That was the weight around Atlanta's neck. So
tier three. Yeah,
on tier 3. That's fair. I think tier 2 we could have made an argument for that as well.
You could swap out Philly, Adam. You could swap out Philly and Atlanta, and I wouldn't hesitate to be cool with that too. I'm like, right, you know what I mean? It's so close. It's so close.
Last team, and I don't think we need to touch on this too much, just because I feel like it's Toronto. Now, Toronto are all right. Scotty Barnes is having a bit of trouble just in terms of scoring. His assist numbers are up. His playmaking numbers are going really well.
Yeah.
They've kind of removed some of his shot volume and gave it to like RJ Barrett, Emmanuel quickly, and so forth. And asked Barnes to be more of a facilitator, and I get it, but what I would say is with Barnes' skill set and his ability to get downhill and what he can do for you off the bounce, both in terms of on the perimeter and around the paint, he's just not being aggressive enough this season. And this isn't me talking. I was actually reading a thread on X earlier before we came onto this, where some Toronto Raptors writers were kind of talking about this in like a thread, and a friend of the show, S. Berahini, was kind of saying these things. I'm kind of just I'm not quoting him verbatim, but I'm kind of putting out what he'd already said there. So shout out S, because I'm kind of piggybacking off your information. But for that reason, and because your best player is not playing aggressive, and because he's not creating much for himself, because you're relying on Quickly and Barrett, that are definitely second tier stars behind Scotty Barnes, I'm really not seeing them as anything more than a tier 3 threat. They're still a rebuilding team right now. I don't think they have a genuine identity. They've got good length. They've got great disruptive ability. I actually really like their head coach, but I just don't see. I don't think they can give Boston much problems more than a 5-game series. Five at most.
I would love to find a way to acquire Shed somehow. He's unbelievable. Jamal Shed. I mean, man, wow. Is he not a lockdown on ball defender and just plays like he's 6'8"? He's that guy. You could just see like, oh man, this guy's a pain in the ass. I got to bring the ball up against him all night. You could just see it. I'm thankful to have Peyton Pritchard. Let's put it that way, because I watch when we play them. I'm always like, why doesn't the coach play this guy more? That's the first thing I think about, because he just seems to bring that level of tenacity. But yeah, Toronto, I think once again, they're house money. They're way playing beyond what anybody's expectations were this year. Well coached, solid team, got a good future, but they're not. I don't even consider them on the level of the Magic or Hawks or Hornets or something.
Look, man, if Indiana had Tyrese Halliburton and they were playing well, Toronto aren't making it. If Milwaukee was playing well, Toronto aren't making it. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Two of the better, supposedly better teams. Now, Indiana, I actually genuinely believe they just took a bit of a gap.
Oh yeah.
But Milwaukee, they've got their own issues. But two of the supposedly better teams in the East aren't playing well this year. They're out of the playoffs. Toronto kind of make it by default at that point, because they are a better team than Washington. They are a better team than Chicago right now. Chicago want to be bad right now. Brooklyn, they're working for about 1 million rookies at the most.
I mean, the Wizards gave up Bam Chamberlain's 83-point game, so.
Do you know what I'm saying? And Bam Chamberlain, they're trying to develop young guys. So shout out to the Wizards and shout out to Brooklyn as well, that was playing with a bazillion rookies and going to have more
Yeah.
bites of the apple this year. So look, this is where we've landed then. So anyone that's made it this far, or you've just skipped to this point, with the chapters and stuff. Knicks and Cavs are the biggest threats to Boston in the East. I don't think that's a shock to anybody that would put it like that. I think that was a very consensus coming into the season, consensus as we end the season. It is what it is, right? A little bit of a curveball. We've put Charlotte as a tier 2 threat, but I'm actually with it there. I can actually dig that. I'm okay with that. Detroit as a tier 2 threat, mainly because Kate Cunningham, we don't know what version we're going to get when he does come back from injury. Sixers as a tier 2 threat because, there's a threat. I keep saying the word threat. There's the concern of like the Tyrese Maxey, BJ, Paul George, Joel Embiid. If all those guys are on the same page, it's going to be tough. We can see that going 6 games, 7.
And they get a good coach, Nick Nurse. Shout out to Nick Nurse.
Nick
He's not
Nurse,
a
yeah.
bum.
Nick Nurse, Birmingham legend out in the UK, coached entire team back in the day when I was a kid.
I love that.
Atlanta Hawks, Miami Heat, Orlando Magic, Toronto Raptors were expecting it to go no further than a gentleman's sweep with Boston face any of those guys. With that being said, I'm wrapping it up here. I'm your boy Adam Taylor from Celtics Chronicle. Link to the newsletter is in the description. I drop 5 takeaways after every game. And then on off days, we're doing listicles, we're doing opinion pieces, news pieces, stat breakdowns, you name it, mailbags, we're throwing it all out there. Subscribe, never miss an episode of the YouTube videos because I always post them onto the newsletter too. This is my boy Mike. Mike, have you got any gigs coming up in the local Boston area anytime soon?
When we get to May, we're going to have a lot of cool announcements to some cool stuff the band will be doing. But right now, just doing what I do, like you always say, on the hamster wheel and talking Celtics, brother.
And with that, everybody make sure to subscribe to the channel, show us some love, and we'll catch you soon. Deuces.